I try and keep my voice down because I don't want to bug my roommates. So I apologize for the sound quality. But I guess I was gonna start by talking about my 2025, which actually starts sometime around September 2024. Well, much shit actually, September 2023. Okay, sorry, I'm trying to figure out what the best place to start this at, and I'm really just going off the cuff here, so I apologize if it's scattered. But, I'll just start from the beginning. In December of 2022, I got myself thrown out of the military for insubordination. Kind of signed up not really knowing what I wanted out of it, and pretty much figured out I didn't want it at all. So I got myself thrown out, and I came back to Nevada just before Christmas on holiday block leave. And it was a pretty big letdown for my family, for sure. But in a lot of ways, I really believe that was probably the best thing that I can do for myself. I signed up just to do a job that I really wasn't fit to do. But when I came back, my daughter was kind of dropping hints, saying things like, she just kept telling me like this is gonna be the best day ever. Just a lot of weird stuff. I can't really go into the details about it, but the first night she spent over with me in my apartment after I'd gotten back, she was crying in the bathtub as I was giving her a bath, and I asked her what was wrong, and she had said that that she was really sorry, but that she was gonna miss me. And I think that was kind of her way of telling me that she was planning to move. I had a feeling that my ex was planning to leave the state. Nevada's a good place, but not necessarily the best place to raise a kid. And I'm sure a lot of people will argue against that, but everyone's got an opinion. And I tend to agree with it. Nevada's probably not the best place to raise a kid, especially the school system. I can't tell you how many times in high school I saw somebody crush a pill and snort it out of their book. It's crazy. But I kind of got a feeling that they were planning to leave, and I don't think she was planning to tell me, or didn't know how exactly. So I wasn't exactly in a good financial spot, given that I had just gotten a less than honorable discharge. So I decided to pull the trigger and relinquish the little bit of custody I had left. And it's a decision that pains me even to this day, but I truly feel that it was the best decision I could make for my daughter, because where she is now, she's living her best life. Big house, lakeside, goes to private school. She's a cool kid. She's got a bunch of extracurricular activities that she's involved in. Tons of stuff that she probably wouldn't get to experience had she stayed in Nevada. So again, like I said, I'm not happy with the decision I made, but it led to a better outcome even if I'm not a part of it. So I was pretty depressed at the time. This is, we're in like September of 2023. And I'm in my house one day on my day off, and I hear a couple fighting, like, from my apartment window. loud enough that like it stops me from playing. I was literally playing Resident Evil on the PS3, mind you, but I was playing this exact game, and so I take a look at the window, and sure enough, it's my younger brother and his wife and his son, and they've got like bags and bags under their arms. They're arguing, and I come to realize, you know, before they even talked to me, they had just gotten kicked out of their apartment. They weren't too good with money, and it was a single income household. Just kind of bad all around. But they literally came to my doorstep begging to stay with me, so naturally, you know, I let them in. They come to stay with me, and things are good for the most part. You know, it's not the best, you know, they're sleeping in my living room in a one-bedroom apartment, but, you know, they're trying to get back on their feet. I was working at the time, and I forget if my brother was working or if he was looking for work, but I remember that Christmas, they didn't really have a lot of cash, you know, and shit just got evicted not that long ago. My sister-in-law, she was going to school, trying to get her degree, so all the money they had was going to her schooling. And that Christmas, I remember my nephew, he loves Transformers. So around December, I take him out to Walmart. He's not done, you know. We're at Walmart and we're shopping around the toy section. I'm just grabbing Transformers like left and right. I was making pretty good money at that time. I was in a bad financial spot in the beginning of the year, but around October, well through like March, I ended up getting a pretty well-paying gig. And I was doing pretty well for myself. So I had some extra scratch, and so that Christmas, like I said, I took him to the Walmart, and we went straight to the toy section. Like, I spent like a good $200, $300 in fucking toys for that kid. And, you know, I wanted to give him a good Christmas because I had just recently given up custody of my daughter. So around January, they managed to get another apartment. You know, they're doing all right, back on their feet. I think my brother was working. My sister-in-law had graduated. I think she got a technical degree. I forget. I'm not too. I don't ask too many questions, but my brother has a really bad drinking problem, like a really bad drinking problem, and sure enough, he eventually gets then kicked out of that apartment too. At that point, my sister-in-law has had enough. She files for divorce, takes the kid. So my little brother comes back to stay with me. And I tell him, you know, given that I have all this information, you know, if you're gonna come back this time, you're gonna fucking clean up. You're gonna stop drinking. We're in 2024 now. So I tell him, you're either gonna go with me 2 days out of the week to the gym to exercise and get your head straight, kick this stuff, or you're gonna pay me $200 a month to live with me, which is, I'd say, more than reasonable. Even if he doesn't have the money, 2 days out of the week, you know, you're coming on my guest pass. You're not paying for anything. You're just literally coming with me to the gym. You can hit the treadmill all you want. Just come with me to the gym. He went twice, maybe. And, couldn't bring himself to continue. I just kept drinking. I acted like I didn't know, but I knew. I would see him on my ride home from work, literally hanging out in the bushes, sneaking alcohol bottles. And it was rough. But I didn't exactly make the best move, and I just kind of bottled up my frustrations with it because I wanted him to get better, but he clearly wasn't. And I think the only reason aside from him being my brother, the only reason I wanted to help was because I was in a really bad place with the whole custody thing. So I felt, hey, you know, maybe if I help him out, I can distract myself from all my bullshit. So I'm bottling up my emotions, trying not to get frustrated with him, but eventually I had enough. I forget what the argument was about, really, but I just remember just coming home frustrated with him after seeing him, you know, getting shit-faced drunk, and I ended up getting into a fist fight with him, and I threw him out of my house. And so that Christmas I spent it alone, entirely alone, and I did a lot of self-reflection, you know, just trying to figure out what was up with me, what was up with my life. And that December, I went out to the wetlands here in Nevada. I took out I had a few guns back then. So I went out to the wetlands with a bunch of ammo, and I just walked out into the desert. You know, this is New Year's Eve, I just walked out into the desert, and I just went and I started unloading just all the guns I had. Just started basically shooting into the dirt. I didn't really have a target, it was dark, and I don't have NVGs, so I couldn't exactly see what I was hitting, so just kind of in frustration, just clearing my inventory, so to speak. And I basically just got out a bunch of frustration, and that night, New Year's Eve, on my drive home from the desert, I kind of decided, you know, 2025 is going to be my year. I'm going to fix myself, so to speak. So January, a couple of guys, I guess, kind of decided that I don't know, maybe I was being full of myself or something. I don't understand, but I guess they didn't like that I was trying to be friendly with people. So some rumors go around about me, and I kind of got in my head about it. So I end up, well into May, I end up kind of in a really big slump, just a huge depression. And I get it into my head that, you know what, I have military training. I can just save money and try and get myself in a better place by maybe living in my car. So I jumped the gun and I just say fuck it. And that June, I decided not to pay my rent, get my car fixed up as best as I can, and jump ship. So from May to September, I was living in my car, sleeping up at the wetlands, or Frenchman's Point to be exact. It's kind of a remote area, not a lot of people, well, a lot of people go up there now to get drunk and shoot guns. So I went up there, and I was doing pretty well, but eventually, you know, people were getting too drunk, partying a little too hard, and so the cops started showing up until eventually I got, you know, 86 from there. They basically told me the next time we see you up here, we're impounding your car and throwing you out. So, kind of had to leave that place. And I was lucky enough to have a coworker rent me a room in his house. So I stayed with him for a little while, and once I had enough money saved, I decided to go out on my own again. I guess at that point I kind of felt that it was, I kind of came accustomed to it, to be honest with you. I was eating ravioli out of a can. I didn't even cook it. I would just peel open the lid and just stick a fork in there and start eating it, which is technically fine because they have to cook that stuff before they can it, but you know, it's not ideal. I'd shower at the Planet Fitness, and I'd just, you know, I'd go to work. I'd go to work, shower at the Planet Fitness, and sleep in the car. And I wasn't in the best place for sure. I mean, no one's gonna be impressed with my life, but I was happy that I was on my own. I was really giving it my all, so to speak. Because I mean, you're in survival mode. So even though it's not the best of living circumstances, I was giving it my all, and I found some solace in that. Eventually I had enough money saved up to rent another room to a nice gentleman out in a pretty bad side of town. So I stayed there for a few weeks. Eventually I saw an ad in Craigslist for kind of a better situation. They had a pool in the back, a small gym, free food, if you could believe it. So I answered the ad, and turns out it's actually a halfway house. You know, people on parole or coming off of drugs, they stay there. So I said, screw it. You know, I'll stay here for a little while until I find something better, because it was a pretty crowded house. It had maybe 8 bedrooms. 3 of the people that were there had like life ending illnesses, and they were kind of just at the end of life care, you know. They were just there. They didn't really want to spend a lot of money because all the money was going to medical bills. So they would stay there, pay that rent, and the rest of their money would go to medical bills. Other guys were there on parole. Some guys were coming off of drugs. So it wasn't the best place for me to be at, but it was what was available to me. And then eventually I moved to another spot where I'm at now, over here in Chinatown. It's really nice. It's a lot of nice roommates. Really quiet. It's a gated community. But I recently lost my job. The company I was working for, they decided in a company meeting sometime in March to move the whole operation up to Reno. So from a little bit, from just out, I've been out of work. The good news is that I found a job, but I don't start until January 12th of next year. So as it stands now, I'm basically on a month-and-a-half vacation. You know, by the time I start work, I'll have been on a month-and-a-half vacation. So I just started this channel just to kind of, I guess, have fun. You know, I don't have a lot of money. As I said before, I'm basically homeless. I have a car. I have a job waiting for me, but I don't have a lot of savings. You know, like a lot of people in today's world. I live paycheck to paycheck. I don't know a damn thing about investing. And to be honest with you, just that kind of stuff gives me a headache. I don't understand it. Maybe I'm just dumb. But if I could find somebody to explain it to me in, you know, baby terms, maybe it's something I could look into. But as it stands right now, the most I understand is acorns, and I'm not well versed enough to even jump into that. So I guess I'm just giving an update. You know, I have a rotten wisdom tooth in my upper left jaw, and it's been like that for over 6 years now. Never got it fixed. I wake up with pretty severe headaches. I go to bed, and as I'm sleeping, I can still feel, you know, my head throbbing. Probably dealing with a sinus infection, because sometimes my ears leak like a weird yellow fluid. But you know, I'm still here, doing what I can, working when I can, enjoying, you know, the little things from time to time when I had extra cash out with the Denny's. My Denny's might go out, but I like to go with 4 sausage links. I don't really dig on the Denny's bacon. It's not really for me. It's not bad, but I prefer the sausage links. Living off Little Caesars for the most part, or cup noodle soups, and still doing the ravioli thing, honestly. At this point, I kind of like it. I just go to Walmart and I get a 4-pack of raviolis. Or actually, if I'm being honest, the most bang for your buck is the what is it? It's like it's not spaghetti. It's I forget which one it is, but it's the thick round noodles with the meat chunks. It's about 450 calories per can, so you eat a whole pack in a day, and you're looking at 1,800 calories, which is well below the 2,500 that's recommended for daily consumption. But when you're living in a car, it is what it is. So what I do for fun is I go to the gym. I'll go up to the wetlands still from time to time and watch the sunrise or the sunset, and I play video games. I've always liked video games. I used to play with toys a lot when I was a kid. I was talking about earlier how I bought my nephew a bunch of toys at Christmas of 2024, and I always felt a closeness to him because of the love of toys. I mean, little boys love toys, I think that's common across the board, but I really loved action figures when I was a kid, and he does too. And as I got older, you move on to like guns and shit like that, but I always like to think that I replaced toys with video games, because they're basically like the action figures. Like if you think about it, I have a Claire action figure, I have a Barry action figure. Once I unlock the one lady with the 4 costumes and Jill and then the other 2, I'll have 6 little action figures that I can play here. It's kind of a silly way to think about it, but that's what it is. Basically just trading one toy for another. So as I said in the beginning, I don't really have an understanding of where this story is going. I kind of just need to, tell my tale, I guess. 2025 has been a crazy year for me. I forced myself into homelessness, and it kind of made me reflect. Yeah, just on what's important in life. Having family. I don't know what happened to my little brother. As far as I know, nobody else does. I lost a family member this year whose funeral I couldn't go to because at the time I was homeless and I couldn't even afford the ticket to go see them, let alone spare the time to actually go down there and do it. So, I got a lot of backlash from that, for sure, from family members. And it's understandable. That's not something they're gonna just forget about, but it is what it is. I made a decision, same way I made a decision to become homeless. I decided 2025 was the year I was going to take, my life into my own hands. And in a lot of ways I did, by making poor decision after poor decision. But I'm still here, thugging it out, as they say, doing the best I can with what I can, and I'm trying to have fun with it, to an extent. I'm not big on drugs. I quit smoking weed this year. I was smoking those vape pens, or those dab pens, for a long time. I swear to God, those things make you schizophrenic. I wasn't dreaming. I have a dream journal now that I write down. I realize that's kind of sus, but it helps, it kind of helps me figure out what's on my mind, if I'm not thinking clearly, or what's actually, maybe causing me anxiety or worry. And surprisingly, it's not money. I mean, everybody needs money. This is America. That's just a fact. But to the extent that I have a car and I have a job and I know how to take care of myself and I have the proper resources to clean up, to get food, I feel alright. Like I said before, my life's not going to impress anybody. Certainly don't have any resources to add anyone to my life. But where I am now, I feel alright. A lot of regrets, a lot of missed opportunities, but I'm still alive. For a minute, I was thinking about, before I sold my guns, I was thinking about putting a fucking bullet in my head, but after everything, after becoming homeless and losing family members, having a rotten tooth in my mouth that causes me physical pain, I'm still choosing life. I guess that's the point I was trying to get across. Christmas is kind of lonely this year, but I'm looking forward to the next one, and many more after that. Yeah, things can get rough, but you just gotta keep pushing, man. That's really all it is. I may not have a lot of stories to tell about me, but they will say that I went out swimming. Gotta change the oil in the car. I got a 2007 Toyota Yaris sedan. Still gotta roll the windows down. The locks are manual. It's a beater, but man, that thing has gotten me through some tough times. I remember one night when I was staying up at the wetlands, I was sleeping in the passenger seat. Little tip: if you ever find yourself sleeping in a car, you want to put your keys in the glove compartment and sleep in the passenger or the back seat. A police officer told me this. The police will be less likely to think that you're drunk, and you won't get stopped for a DUI or anything like that, or drunk in public. If you are drunk for any reason, you could just say you're sleeping it off. You might get a ticket, but they won't throw you in jail because you're not actively in the process of driving the vehicle. Something about like sufficient enough measures to prohibit yourself from driving. Something like, I forget the wording, but so I was sleeping in the passenger seat, and I wake up to gunshots, bang, 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 bang. And this is the wetlands, mind you. Everybody goes up to the wetlands to pop off rounds or get drunk. Or a couple of times I was up there, I heard people getting busy. I don't know if it's their girlfriend or whatever, but people do. It's the wetlands. It's open desert, so people just go crazy out there. So I wake up to shooting. It's a little 22. This guy's got a little, one of those, I think it's Chiappa that made a Beretta, I forget, but it's a little 22 Beretta. And it's enough that it's keeping me up, and I don't want to be rude, and like tell him to quiet down. It's America. He should be able to do what he wants, to an extent. So I have my 410, this Rossi Brawler, and it shoots 410 and 45 long Colt. So I load up around. I load up around. I get out of the car, and as he's shooting his gun, I see that he's trying to impress this girl he's with. So I just kind of walk a little bit past him, away from his line of fire, and I just draw the brawler in one motion, and I just one arm it, and I just BAM! Shoot a 45 straight into open desert. Just the loudest. It's a 45. It's loud. So he's like pop pop pop. He's doing little pop offs, and he just hears this. He just sees this guy walk up and just boom. They both go quiet, and he kind of puts his gun away, all shy and stuff, and he comes over and he's like, he's speaking Spanish, mind you. He's like, "What is that? What are you shooting?" So I show it to him. He's like, "It's a shotgun." He thought it was a revolver, but I tell him, "Hey, it's pretty cool." And I told him, the best thing you want to do when you're out here shooting is you want to go about a mile, 2 miles past the barrier, the BLM barrier that they have out there, because it's government land. You're not supposed to be going out there, but people do. So I tell him, best thing you want to do is to go out, a mile and a half to 2 miles out into the open desert. Find yourself a little berm or a ditch and just, get a target and just shoot out there. Because if you're shooting out here, I would like to park right there where the gravel met the dirt road. So technically speaking, you're still on a public property, so you can get a ticket for shooting the gun, even though I just did. But if you wanna, just have fun and be kind of left alone, you wanna take that trip, just march up there, or march out there. So we get to talking a little bit, and I'm tired, but he really wants to shoot my Rozzy, so I give him a couple rounds of the 410, because it's a little bit louder than the 45. It kicks a little harder too, if I'm being honest. And I tell him, you take that march up there, and I'll let you shoot my gun, just, let me go to sleep. I got work in the morning. It's already like 1 in the morning, I gotta wake up at 6. So he does, which is kind of stupid of me to just hand him my weapon like that, but I don't know, something about him told me I could trust him. That and his vehicle was parked right next to me, so I would hear him when he came back to the car. So he does. I get my sleep. He's to the car. I get out. I still think about it to this day. What a beautiful sight it was to wake up to that, And it's something that I wouldn't have if I had stayed in my apartment. It's not something that's life-changing, I guess you can say, in the extent that it's not going to benefit me financially or in terms of a network, but when I was living in my apartment, my windows looked out to other apartments, or my bedroom window, it looked out to a cinder block wall of the apartment building next to me. So I guess it's a little silver lining, by putting myself in this situation, is I wouldn't be able to experience something like that in that way unless I made it a fact to do it, like made it a concerted effort to just go out before the sun rises just to watch it, which I do now that I have a place to stay again. Just being able to open my eyes and see just that warm orange glow, that orange purple glow just before the sun comes out. It's beautiful, man. Nevada is a beautiful place to be. Maybe not the best place to raise kids, but in a lot of respects, it's a beautiful lay of the land. So I saw plenty of coyotes in my stay up there, Sometimes I shine a light on them and hear them yip away. Beep, beep. Oh shit, what was that? So that's my my year. Took a couple of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes too. had to kind of stop because they were pretty expensive, and I just wasn't making the kind of money to sustain that, especially considering I'm trying to save money. But that was fun, and I feel like once I'm back on my feet again, I'm gonna try that again. Try that out again. When I went to my first class, I went to the morning class. I was in there with a bunch of teenagers and little kids, like little kids, maybe as old as my daughter. We're warming up, and at first I feel a little funny, like, oh man, I'm here with the kids. There's a few adults in there, guys my age. Guys way bigger than me too. At first I feel a little funny about it, you know. But as the class goes on, I start to realize that these little, like, there was this little girl there, man. She was beating the shit out of all of the little boys there. She's putting them in joint locks. At one point, this guy is on I think it's, what is it, half guard. He's on the floor and he's got his legs wrapped around her. He has her head, so rather than try to pull her head away from his grasp, she grabs onto his gi and lifts this kid up. Mind you, they're both like 4 or 5 years old, so not that big, but it was still funny to see this little 5-year-old girl pick this kid up and just fucking slam him on his back. So that sort of embarrassment went away pretty fast, realizing that these children were incredibly skilled for their age. Tough little kids in that class. There was this one guy, they matched me with this 25-year-old. He was pretty informative, he taught me a lot of stuff. But I ended up rolling with this guy in his 30s, I'm in my 30s. And holy shit, this guy almost knocked me out. He put me in a chokehold at one point, and I was being stubborn. I didn't want to tap, and I think he knew that, but he kind of wanted to teach me a lesson. So he just clenched tighter and kind of turned his body in a way to kind of tighten the grip. Oh man, I went black and saw stars, and I just instinctually just tapped on his forearm. But he was pretty cool too. And you know, once the money's back there, back where it needs to be, I'm definitely gonna take that up again, because that was fun. And it was definitely out of my comfort zone, because more often than not, after I split up with my going to the gym, going to work, and smoking weed, never around my kid. But you know, when my kid wasn't there, that's what I would do. I would just hang out in my apartment, watch The Sopranos, play video games, and smoke weed. And it's not conducive to a life, you know. I mean, I'm not saying, you know, weed is bad, but to the extent that you're not really doing anything with your life, I guess, it can be hindering. You know, when you're young, weed is fine. You know, it's a nice little distraction. Or even when you're older, to an extent, if you have all your ducks in a row. But if you're like me and you were struggling, it's just gonna hold you back. It's not a good idea, so I decided to quit that entirely. Oh, I got a friend request. Let me just take this down real quick. Oh no! Reload! Okay, give me 1 second. How do I pause? Oh, I guess you can only hear me at this point. Packer Dad, thank you for the friend request. You know, my father was a huge Packers fan. Never really big into sports myself. I played baseball when I was a kid. Father wanted us to play baseball. I played first base and then outfield. played in Little League. I ended up playing my little brother, the one who I got into the whole spat with in 2024 for the final game. I was in the Braves. He was in the Athletics. I mean, when you're a kid, it doesn't. I don't know how you can gauge your skill. Even as I think about it now, I feel like I sucked as a baseball player. I remember when we get ground balls, instead of putting my glove out to catch it, I would try and stop it with my foot like we were playing soccer. I should have been a soccer player. But, yeah, I don't know how, but we made it to the finals. And it was me and my little brother. He was up to bat. He was last at bat. He ended up hitting the game-winning home run. And I remember I was in the outfield at that time, and I just remember seeing his ball flying over me, and I was good enough to go and catch it, but I don't know if it's just, me planning the story in my head, or if it was what I actually felt at the time, but something inside of me told me that, don't catch it, let him win, let him get this. We had kind of a rough childhood. And so we really bonded when we were playing. I mean, we were poor, dude. We didn't have enough gloves to go around. So when we played each other a few times, when we would play each other, we had one glove. If I was playing, I would use that glove. If he was playing a game, he would use the glove. And in the games where we would play each other, as you're walking out the field and going to the dugout, I would pass him in line and I would give him the glove. Like I said before, I got a lot of regrets. I'm not too happy about the way things turned out with my little brother. But I have to stand by my decision. I made it. Kind of have to live with it now. But yeah, back to my dad. My dad is fucking awesome, dude. My father was a really good man. He used to work a lot. He still does to this day. But wasn't really around too much. But when he was around, he'd involve us however he could. I remember a couple of times I went to a sushi bar with him with his current girlfriend. He's trying to score brownie points with her. Like, hey, look at my son. I'm a good guy. He taught me a lot of good things. One of the biggest things he taught me was desire. Like you have to have a desire for things in this life. Things will just come to you. Hard work is fine, but if you don't want anything in life, you can work hard all your life and get nothing. It happens every day. Shit, I'm doing it. Before I got let go, I was busting my ass. I was working as a refurbishment technician, working on ATMs and slot machines, different kinds of slot machines, mostly the old ones, the one-armed bandits. But when I came in, I remember my mentor Malcolm was telling me, let me see, it says I got messages. He was telling me that I was the rookie of the year. Hey, Packer Dad. How do I do the comments on there? Thank you. Good luck to you too. Merry Christmas.
Misión cumplida.
Holy crap, Packer Dad has a gang of medallions. I really like this game. It's simple controls, you know, easy to get into. Some of the other games I play, I find myself too enthralled in what's happening to actually, you know, say anything. I have the microphone on. Sometimes I play music or YouTube videos, but for the most part, I'm not saying anything. But this game was always really easy for me to play. So I guess kind of like when I was learning to play guitar. Um, Learning to sing and play was a real struggle. But you know, once you kind of got over that entry point, it started to fall into place. So maybe if I, as I'm doing now, just kind of try, I should be able to be a little more charismatic when I have the microphone on. Yeah, I was working on ATMs and slot machines for a while. It's pretty good work, paid well, for the most part. I mean, as well as like a warehouse job. But it was a lot easier, I guess you could say. I had my own little workstation, my own rolly chair, my own laptop. Basically, just working with hand tools. If you like working on cars or taking things apart, it was a sweet gig. But a lot of the refurbishment companies are actually leaving Las Vegas. There's a couple of state-of-the-art facilities out in Reno, and this one company, International Gaming Technologies, they're buying up. I think they bought up Light and Magic, as well as the company I was working for. So finding work out here for that kind of stuff is pretty difficult. Unless you want to be a field tech or a designated tech for like a Dottie's or a MGM, stuff like that. But that's going to be hard to get into. They want like 10, 15 years of experience. I have maybe 2.5 years under my belt. Was mostly working warehouse before that. Did pretty well working warehouse, roughly 10 plus years, something like that. Shit, the job I have waiting for me in January is warehouse, so I'm excited to go back into that. But working on ATMs and slot machines is really insightful. You get to understand how LEDs talk to each other. You know, dealing with motherboards and one of the guys I work with, Danny. I won't say his last name, but he's from Las Vegas. And he's a relative of a very famous UFC fighter who is also from Las Vegas. So I won't say his last name, but he's, as far as I know, there's not too many UFC fighters that are from Vegas. Although I could be wrong, we have tons of UFC gyms. But he used to say all the time, you know, he learned how to build a computer from working at that company, because a lot of the skill set needed to, you know, put the fans in and understand how the system cools itself, how different inputs correspond to different aspects of the computer. Like speakers, a lot of the times the speakers when they come in from China, the left one and the right one are on opposite ends, which isn't too much of a deal, you know, but if you're looking at how things are wired up, you know, you want to get them right. It has an L and it has an R. But I imagine it's just an oversight on their part. But he used to say, you know, you gotta follow the schematics. You gotta understand why something is there before you just start plugging stuff in. That way you can understand, you know, whether or not in the future, if you can't power it, or, I mean, for the slot machines, you know, they have to be tip top. But I guess in terms of his computer, I'm getting kind of jumbled up here, but in terms of how his computer works, like, well, maybe you don't need this necessarily, or you know, if you run a cable or some wiring this way, or get something to communicate with something else, like the lights. Like a lot of the times, the lighting for slot machines is a lot of the time they're powered through. What we were doing a lot of LCD conversions. So a lot of the times you have like a 14 budget slot machine, button slot machine, or a 6 button slot machine. You know, place a bet, cash out, call for service, things like that. So the power for those lights on the buttons actually comes from the speakers. But once you put the LCD in, the speakers and the lights, they get their power from the LCD screen, because it requires so much so much power to actually run that thing. That it actually comes with inputs to input your wiring to the monitor. So it's kind of interesting to see how, you know, when it was originally built, the wiring was inside of the harness. It was arranged in a certain way to allow for the main power source to power those certain bits of the machine. But once you get the LCD in there, you kind of have to rewire everything specifically for the LCD, because it can produce so much power, or it takes so much power that it can share power. So you're running your audio and you're running a lot of LED lights from the actual touchscreen monitor. I don't know where I was going with that. I feel like I'm just filling air now. I got some messages. I should put the comments thing up. I don't know how to do that. Give me 1 sec as I figure out how to work this thing. Wait, no, I think that was the screen. Yeah, like I said, yeah, technology's crazy, man. I couldn't explain to you a lot of the stuff we were doing, but just working with my hands, it's so much fun. We had this graveyard. We used to call it the graveyard. It's just rows and rows of old slot machines, different kinds. You have like PCRs, PCSs. It's like Player Classic Reserve, Player Classic Standard. You had PCS-R, which is a Player Classic Revolve. If you ever go to Vegas, if you ever come to Vegas, and you see a one-arm bandit with like a rotational device up top, something that spins, that's a PCS-R. It requires a whole attachment just to have that little thing up there. A separate motherboard and everything. But yeah, we used to have this graveyard of just decommissioned machines. And my favorite thing to do, because we're in the refurbishment department, so we're kind of the first line of repair. Occasionally we'd get orders where you get it straight from the casino. But a lot of the times, what we do is we take those old decommissioned machines, and they're kind of like Legos. It's plug and play with those things. Once you modernize them with the touchscreen pads and the touchscreen player decks, you can, as long as they're cleaned up and scratch free, you can resell them, you know, at a discount. But for the most part, that's what the company would do, is we would take a lot of those banged up decommissioned machines and we just Frankenstein them You know, we'd grab a part from here if the arm mechanism was busted, which a lot of the times it was. You take it from one machine and you know, transplant it onto another. And that was always my favorite aspect, is just picking from like 5 or 6 machines just to make one new one. Don't hit the barrel, don't hit the barrel. The arm mechanisms are typically the first to go. Player decks as well. People spill drinks in there, and coffee and whatnot. Can't tell you how many machines came back from the casinos just covered in like thick sugar, like thick caramelized sugar, just from people spilling drinks and whatnot on there. It'll mess with the wiring, you know? It'll burn out circuit boards. But typically the arm mechanism was one of the first things to go. It's this big metal block on the inside of the machine that has a couple of divots that allow the gear to lock into place when you engage the arm mechanism. If you ever use one of those one-arm bandits, there's a very distinct like crank, crank, crank. That's the gears moving. That's those divots, and it's all kind of guided on a magnet and a washer that has a cutout on it that allows it to make that sound. Because if you don't have that washer there, or if it's put on incorrectly, that arm will move freely, and you know you can't engage the revolving. I forget what those things are called, but the wheels. So you won't get it to spin. But inside the arm mechanism, there's a little battery and a little magnet, and it's held on with a screw. What happens is when you put the quarter in, oh shit, it activates the magnet. It activates the battery, and the battery, something with the polarity, it causes the magnet to fall out of place, which then allows the arm to be unlocked and allows you to crank it for bets. So a lot of the times that little spring, which is like it's hair thin, it would snap, or it would just come undone, and it would render the whole arm mechanism useless. Now, what you could do is you could take the box, the housing box for that little battery and the gear and the magnet. You could take it apart and replace the spring, which is kind of time consuming, or you could do what we did a lot of the time, is just put in a whole new housing box, which is costly on one end, but when you're dealing with orders of 50 to 60 slot machines at a time is a factor. So it's a lot easier to just swap the housing unit as opposed to just replacing the one individual spring. But I used to love taking those apart. I remember my trainer. Oh no, my trainer Luis. He used to tell me all the time, "Hey man, you don't gotta take it apart. You just request a new housing." And I would tell him, "Oh, I did. I requested a new one. It's on the parts order. I'm just kind of doing this for fun." And I guess he loved that about me, because I would just love to tinker. Just take it apart, see how it works. Again, technology is weird. I couldn't tell you what each of the mechanisms. I didn't get that far into it to actually learn all the names. But just getting my hands on it was the main part for me. It was genuinely. It was fun. It was one of the few jobs I've had in my life where I can say, "Oh, I had fun doing this." So it kind of sucks that the company was bought and that they're moving out of the city. But I have that experience under my belt, and hey, maybe in the future I might pivot back into that. As it stands right now, though, like I said, a lot of those companies got bought out, and they're no longer in Vegas, which is crazy when you think about it, because there's more casinos in Las Vegas than there are in Reno. But I guess IGT has a huge has a huge gaming department, and the company I worked for, we have a huge we're more into ATMs. We would work on slot machines and such. Like if you ever been on a cruise ship and you get one of those cruise cards that allows you to put money in and whatnot, more often than not, you're using one of our ATMs. We have like contracts with damn near every cruise liner in America, at least stateside. I know we had some in Australia as well, mostly stateside. So if all the casinos use our ATMs, if you ever go to a casino and you see those big ATMs where they're pulling out like $10,000-$15,000 and people are getting cashed out, that's one of our machines. Those things are a pain and a half to put together. The cash box alone, or the cash can as we called it, the cash can alone weighs over 90 pounds. Once it's fully assembled, it's like a 90-pound rig that's on a roller. It has 6 different cash cans, different denominations: $5, $10, $20, $100. But it has different. It's pretty heavy, and you have to assemble it in pieces, and then put it onto the roller because you don't have a lot of space to place it on the roller inside of the machine. So you have to build it outside of the machine, and then have 2 or 3 guys lift it and then put it into the machine. Or into the into the actual chassis of the ATM. And then you have your printer and your BA, which is your bill acceptor, and that's the actual device that scans your denomination, so it knows if you're putting in $5 or if you're putting in $100. Those are always difficult because we were working with industrial ATMs, the big ones for casinos and cruise liners. Occasionally we do the smaller ones, but for the most part, our company had that's what I was saying. Sorry, we had a whole division regarding ATMs. So when IGT came along, they bought us specifically because they wanted our ATM contract, because they have a huge gaming facility in Reno, and I guess their plan was to just consolidate Light and Magic as well as our company into their company up in Reno. So we were specifically bought out because they wanted our ATM technology. I remember the meeting where they gathered everybody into the break room and they said, "Hey, I know we've been talking about possibility of raises and you know, promotions, but guess what? You're out of a job." They told us they have 20 positions for people that they're willing to relocate to Reno. They'll pay for your I think like 3 months worth of housing. IGT is a huge company. They have the money to spare, but they're willing to pay for the housing for up to 20 people. And the production line of the warehouse team, as soon as we heard that, we all kind of shrugged. We're like, yeah, it's not us. I promise you, it's not any of us. The labor end, you know, you can replace easily. To an extent, you know, you have technicians there that were there for like 20 years. There's guys that were the whole compendium of knowledge regarding the machinery. And you have guys like me that just know how to work a socket wrench. But yeah, we all kind of knew, you know, that those 20 positions aren't for us. A couple of guys, you know, they applied for it, and I happened to learn from my team lead Malcolm, who's a really cool guy from the UK. He's a guitar player. Like he was a shredder, dude. He's this big old buff, like 6 foot tall, 250-pound shredder. I forget what that guy's name is from Dawkin. Mr. Scary, the guitar player, the bodybuilder. He's like that, except bald. But he told me that those guys that applied, he's friends with the owner. He told me in confidence that the owner told him that he wouldn't even think to give those guys the position, which he thought was very insulting. You know, rightfully so. He was even told he was going to get a promotion, and here he is now, having to look for a job well into his 50s. it sucks, but it's just the economy we live in right now. Everyone's hurting for work. You know, there's plenty of money, just not enough to go around for a litany of reasons. And as long as they keep printing that money machine, that money's just going to become less and less valuable. I was saying earlier I should look into crypto or investing. I mean, I'm in my 30s. I mean, God, so much time has passed. I probably could have had a nice little chunk of change for myself. Nothing too fancy, but enough to, you know, feel safe. Had I started sooner, but better late than never, right? I mean, in this economy, you if you're not making your money work for you, what are you doing? And I say that like I know what I'm doing. I have no clue what I'm doing with investments. I just started the Acorn thing. I put in like $60. I was really hesitant to do that. I was doing like a week's worth of research, YouTube videos, online articles, seeing if it's worth the salt. And so far, I've made $25 off of it. So I mean, it's not that bad, I guess. Again, I don't know too much about investing, but I'm only a month in, so I would say that's good. You know, a month in, and I'm already kind of getting a half return on the investment. But yeah, I mean, shit, it's getting rough out here. Oh, reload. I gotta level up her skills. I usually wait until like I'm level 15 or level 20 to really get some of the better perks. I want her to specialize in assault rifles and shotguns, but I think she only has SMGs, so I have to wait to inherit the perk from somebody else. I forget what that lady's name is, but there's a character in here. She's in the main story. You find her body within the first level. I really like playing as that character. She has the Lady Hunk costume, which is pretty cool, as well as that like Japanese policewoman costume. That one's probably one of my favorite costumes. And she also has that one of her costumes is the character from Revelations 1 when you're on the oil tanker. Come on. I'm too busy over here rambling to actually pay attention to what I'm doing. But it's getting rough out here. I mean, even Vegas, in terms of the industry, just the casinos and the resorts, they're not doing too well. I know there's a lot of reports saying, oh, it's a myth, or maybe that's just local reports, but it is pretty bad out here. If you're not making like six-figure income, for the most part, it's not what it used to be. It's kind of empty. I wouldn't want to say it's completely deserted, but back in the day when I got here in Vegas, and I remember coming to Vegas when I was a child with my father when we lived in California. It's a lot warmer, a lot more wood grain, a lot more of what people think Vegas is, what you see in the movies. But now it really is, it's kind of like Night City and Cyberpunk when you get to the Strip. A lot of glass, a lot of concrete. It's less of a desert getaway and more of a... I only have 2 left, huh? Do you have any ammo? And more of like a corporate setting, to be honest with you. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but once the corporations really took over in the mid-2000s, slowly over time, you stop seeing the, the 99-cent cocktails or the $10 buffets. That really all went away pretty fast after the mid-2000s. It's unfortunate because I kind of grew up on that. I remember we used to go to, not Buffalo Bills. It's just by the South Point Casino. No, I'm sorry, not the South Point, the Eastside Cannery. Buffalo somethings. But you can get steak and lobster there for $12 with a baked potato and an extra side. Your choice of drinks is the best. I used to go there with my mother all the time. My brother and my brothers, we loved it. You get a thick piece of lobster too, a thick little lobster tail. You can just dunk in the butter. Oh my God, it's the best. Let's check out the. I'm gonna put on the comments, but I don't know how. Oh, Wisconsin. Oh, I have so many that I gotta sell. Okay. Winning. When you lose, it's a completely different story. I've seen people ruin their lives gambling here. I laugh, but it's a very serious problem. I remember when I was a kid, I used to take the bus to school. I went to Del Sol High School out here. One time I saw this guy riding the bus line. It passed by the airport because our school was less than a mile from the airport, or from the runway, I should say. But I saw this guy in a suit with a bag for I think he was at the South Point, like a little gift bag from the South Point with no shoes on. I don't know how that came about, but I guess the story I made up in my head was that he sold his shoes to continue gambling. I mean, I see no other, either that or he got beat up and they took his shoes. I couldn't tell you, but I remember seeing that and thinking to myself, wow, it really does get rough on those tables. You know, we're a tourist city, so a lot of the downsides of gambling, like the suicide victims, they don't report that stuff. It sucks to say, but it's bad for business. A lot of that stuff stays out of the news. But my mother worked as a GRA. That's a cleaning lady, or a housekeeper, I should say, for 12 years. So she used to tell us, you know, when she comes home from work, she'd be like, yeah, there was another jumper today. She worked at the Aria, and they're connected to, they have a few properties on the Strip. I worked there one summer to earn some extra money as a house person, just picking up linens and trash from the hallway, basically a janitor. Oh man, that was rough. See a lot of crazy stuff. I once saw this lady who I guess she was there with her friend on a business trip, and they decided, I guess after whatever convention they were at, to go get some drinks. So they're in these cocktail dresses, and one of the girls is just sloshed, like she is sloppy drunk, and her friend is carrying her, and her straps on her dress are coming undone. So like she's bearing all for anybody in the hallway. And I have to stop her and let her know, like, hey, ma'am, you have to fix yourself or have your friend fix you because there are children on this floor. You know, you can't just be walking around like that. You know, it's not that kind of Vegas anymore. And I remember her friend saying, like, yeah, I understand, you know, we're not trying to cause trouble. And I told her, oh yeah, I'm not gonna call anybody. Just, you know, please make sure she's covered up. You know, there's kids on the floor. They don't need to be exposed to that. So, you know, as she's about to go on her way, her drunk friend looks over to me and she's like, hey, do you know where I can get any blow? And I told her, no, you know, I'm not connected like that. I just work here. You know, it's not that kind of Vegas. I'm sure there were plenty of people who worked at the resort who could get their hands on that kind of stuff. I did timeshare sales for a little while right at a high school, and there were plenty of people that worked there that were, you know, skiing in between sales pitches. So I mean, to an extent, Vegas is still kind of like that, but because of the corporatization, if that's a word, of Las Vegas, that's, you know, it has to be kept on the hush. It was always on the hush hush, I would imagine, but it's less like an open secret and more like the kind of thing that'll get you fired for sure. So, you know, people aren't advertising like, oh yeah, I know where to get the hookup. But I guess she just assumed that I did. And I told her, you know, I'm not hooked up like that. And she was like, yeah, sure you are. You just don't want to give me any. I thought that was pretty crazy. One time this dude, I got called up to the high roller suite. I was working the lower levels. And I guess I was a house person, but I would double as a runner, which is basically just whenever somebody needs like a toothbrush or extra towels or pillows or whatnot, they call runners, and you just run down to the supply room, you pick some up, and you run it back up. Runners. So there was a severe lack of runners that summer, and the guy who was working the high roller suite, he was there by himself. He was supposed to have 3 other guys with him on his crew, but they never showed up. Maybe, you know, out drinking or whatever. They just didn't show up that day. So I was pretty good at my job, so they told me, hey, you know, you want to work the high roller suite today? So I said, sure. They gave me this undershirt that I have to wear because you're not allowed to show tattoos on the high roller suite, so I had to cover up my sleeves. And so I get up there, and I get up there, and this guy, he calls over for a pillow and a blanket. I guess he wanted an extra pillow and a blanket. So I rush down to the supply room, I get the pillow, I get the blanket, get a complimentary like little tote bag of toothbrushes and deodorant and like chocolates and mints and soaps, just as a plus, you know, trying to get a tip. Like, hey, you know, in case you don't have any of this other stuff, I got it for you. So I get to his room on the high roller suite, and these are really nice rooms. Lots of, you know, well-off people in there. I get to the high roller suite and knock on the door, and this large, you know, pot-bellied man opens the door, full-on naked, with a half chub. It just opens the door with like $60 in 20s in his hand. I don't know what he thought was gonna happen. You know, I think maybe he thought it was gonna be a pretty girl going up to his door, but it was just my short ass just showing up to his room with this little gift bag and a pillow and a blanket, just staring him in the eyes because I'm not trying to look at anything else. And he's got this surprised look on his face, and then I can kind of see like the shame and embarrassment wash over his face after he realizes this didn't go the way he thought it was gonna go. And I just he's got the money in his hand, so I hand him the stuff, trying really hard not to break eye contact. And I shouldn't have done this because he could have easily reported me, but as I'm doing that, I just grab the $60 from his hand and I walk away. I'm just like, yeah, dude, I'm not gonna say anything. I hope you don't say anything either. So I'm just gonna take this money that you clearly had planned to do, you know, for something else. Vegas is wild, dude. I imagine maybe the lifestyle in Wisconsin maybe doesn't have those kinds of people, you know, wandering around but the halls. But there's, you know, there's hundreds of thousands of stories like that in Las Vegas, because it's kind of the stigma we have, you know, Sin City, you know, what happens here stays here. People really take that to heart, but it's not that kind of a city anymore. It's really not. When I first got here, we had when you would go to the strip, you would have these groups of people selling waters and sodas just out on the strip, and they would be slapping these cards on their hands all the time and trying to hand them out to people. When I was a kid, one time I snuck out to the strip to see this because my mother would always guide me away from those guys, and I wanted to see what they're handing out, you know. I was a curious kid. So one day I sneak out with my little brother, and we go out to the strip. We managed to sell some beers somehow. Somebody bought us some. Or we managed to get somebody to buy us some. And I got a Foster's. Horrible. I don't really drink, but 4 beers. that just tasted like water. Like it was not good. But I eventually just went up to the guy who was handing out the cards and I look at it, and it's just, you know, basically like stripper cards. You know, you get a picture of the girl and a number you can call on the back to get the girl to come to your room. And as a joke, me and my brother collected them like Pokemon cards. Like, oh, you got Wendy? I got Wendy. Did you get Stacy? I got Stacy. But that's not here anymore. That's long gone. I mean, they still have strip clubs and there's still working girls here, but it's not like the movies, you know. Like, it's all very subversive. Maybe that's not the best word to use. But that old idea of what Vegas was, and mind you, I'm only stepping into the bad side of it. That old idea of what it used to be is no longer. It's very streamlined. It's a lot more like Disney. It's very, very corporate. But there would just be guys handing out cards that are basically fucking, you know, like softcore corn to kids. I didn't look like an adult. I looked like I was, you know, 17. And he's just like handing me these cards of half-naked women out, and it's just crazy stuff like that. That's not there anymore. Buskers, for the most part, you know, you're not gonna see guys with guitars out there. There used to be this rapping fat guy. He would wear a dress. He had this big speaker and a microphone, and he would just rap off the top of the dome. Just anything he saw, anytime somebody passed by, he would just start rapping. Like, you know, I'm not a rapper, but, you know, lady's got a red dress, high heel shoes, something, just whatever he was looking at, he could rap on the spot. He was really good. He's long gone. We also had very well-known homeless people. Like, there's this guy, he used to call himself the Facebook president of the world. He was from Lebanon, and he would ride around a bicycle with the Lebanese flag, the Palestinian flag, the American flag, the Mexican flag on his bike, and he had a little attachment for a little cart where he would have his dog, and he'd just go around and he would talk to people who would hang out outside of the Einstein's Bagel and just wait for them to throw out bagels, and he would eat there, and like sometimes he'd have coffee with people when he had money. He was very well known. He was a nice guy for a homeless person. He was a very nice guy. And you know, over the years, you would just kind of see him, I guess, devolve. I mean, he's homeless. I'm homeless. You know, I don't want to speak about him like I'm, you know, looking down on him. I'm not. But well, technically I'm homeless. But yeah, he just kind of, I guess he got into drugs or something. It became harder and harder for people to actually live on the streets here. I spent a year in Utah for a little while, and I found this out. But Utah, a lot of the homeless people, a lot of the reason you don't see homeless people in Utah is because they pay for bus tickets to send them to Las Vegas. We have this very large homeless shelter called the Awning, just inside of downtown Las Vegas. It's basically this. No, I'm sorry, not the Awning, the Courtyard. It's colloquially known as the Awning because it's basically just this concrete courtyard with a couple of offices and showers and restrooms with a giant awning above it, and you can just go there as a homeless person and sleep. I had the thought to go down there early in my decision to live in my car, just because, as I said before, it's very difficult to live in your vehicle here. Walmart used to let you sleep in the parking lots, and Planet Fitness too, but city ordinance changed to stop vagrancy, so that's no longer allowed. So even in businesses where they would allow you to, you can still get a ticket and get your vehicle impounded. So it's just not worth it. So some people, like myself, we'd go out to the wetlands, or they would go to the Courtyard, because they have like this huge parking lot, and it's basically just a parking lot of people who live in their cars. But I had the thought to go down there at one point, so I went and checked it out, and it was just, oh man, it was like walking into like Mad Max, dude. It was like the Thunderdome. Just shopping carts and people like trading stuff. It was pretty bad. But you know, the city pays a lot of money to gets a lot of money to help with the homeless population, to get them help and whatnot. But from what I've seen in my short time in this experience, they must be pocketing that money, because they're, aside from food banks and like a place to shower and sleep, they really don't try and help them at all. They kind of just, you know, have them look away, and it's understandable to the extent that we're a tourist town. You know, we want people to come here, and there's a lot of homeless people running around. I could see why people would not want to come here. But I guess because I've joined that population, you know, I see it in a different light now. There are people too. There's guys, plenty of guys like me who want to, you know, fix their lives. They're trying to do better, get back on their feet. They just don't have the resources. You know, I'm lucky enough to have a gym membership, so when I was living in my car, I could go to work, sleep in my car, and then go to the gym, work out, and shower. There was this old Marine veteran who worked at the Planet Fitness that I would go to. He knew what was up. Like, there's plenty of people who use Planet Fitness specifically for that, you know. And as long as you didn't cause trouble or smelled really bad, like, he didn't really care. He would tell you too, like, hey, you know, there's there. He would give me donuts sometimes from their break room, like, hey, nobody wanted this one, do you want it? And you know, I'm not gonna say no. Take it, do my workout, and take a shower, and drive up to the wetlands. But where was I going with that? Yeah, like, so yeah, some of them don't have that resources. You know, they have the courtyard. You know, you can go to the courtyard and they have restrooms, but it's very rudimentary from what I've seen. It's just like a little booth with a sheet over it and like a little shower head. It's kind of the same thing you'd see at a Planet Fitness, honestly. But you know, there's so many homeless people here that from what I was told by some of the guys that I've made friends with, you would be waiting in line to take a shower for up to 2 hours. So you'd just be hanging around the courtyard waiting, and it's not like it's like a safe space. People were getting into fist fights there. There's people doing drugs there. One woman that I met, she was like 45. She looked young from behind when I met her. I'm not gonna lie, I went up there to chat her up, maybe take her out on a Carl's Jr. date, because that's what I could afford at the time. And she was a really nice person after I got to know her, but I went up there with the intent to just, you know, have a friendly date. And she turns around and I could see the wear on her face, and I was like, oh wow, you're either on drugs or in your 50s. And sure enough, she was 45 and on drugs, so you know, it made sense. But she was still like candy girl, raver girl, wearing dirty fuzzy boots with all of the bright bracelets and whatnot. And she was a really nice girl, but she had told me that when she had gotten there, you know, some guys tried to jump her for, you know, like assault her. And this was in the courtyard. This is a state-run homeless shelter, and that kind of stuff just happens. So I can see why the few resources they do have, they might not want to take advantage of, because they're not exactly safe. So my heart goes out to those guys that are just like me, you know, trying to get back on their feet, but for whatever reason, they haven't caught that break. You know, I was lucky enough to be employed and have my vehicle, so I always technically had a roof over my head. If I wasn't at work, I was in my car, and because I had a job, I could afford a gym membership, so I could, you know, get myself cleaned up. I didn't have to really wait in line. I was in a gym, so I was in a position where I could better myself, at least for a moment. You know, get my head straight, you know, work out. Yeah, some guys don't have that. Some guys are literally like on the street. You know, they're not all drug addicts and crazy people. Some of them have family issues, or I've met a few veterans that when they came back, they just didn't have the resources to, or they got, you know, like really depressed and just couldn't go on with themselves. So they weren't able to make that transition. I met one guy, David. He was really cool. I met him at the skate park. I would go there and skate on my my longboard. or sorry, not a longboard. It's a cruiser. So it's like a longboard, but smaller, so you can maneuver a little better. And I would go down the pipes and whatnot. But I met him there, and he used to refer to himself as a professional mover outer, because he was so used to being he was a cavalry scout back in the army. So he was so used to like living out in the field that basically when he came back, he kind of couldn't get used to the whole apartment living. Maybe he messed around with drugs and stuff. I don't know. He never did anything while I hung out with him those few times. But for whatever reason, he just decided to stay out on the streets. You know, he'd save up his little bit of money playing his guitar, or when people would give him money, and he'd go to the Little Caesars. Little Caesars is a godsend, by the way. $6.99 for a hot and ready. That'll keep you going a whole day. That's 2,800 calories. That's more than enough that you need for a day. Maybe not the protein or the macros or whatnot, but again, you know, when you're in that position, you take what you can get. $6 to have you fed for a full day, that's not too bad. But yeah, he was a pretty cool guy. Him and like 6 other people, they would hang out, and he used to carry his rucksack with him everywhere. And sure enough, you know, he had a sleeping system in there, his sleeping bag, his inner liner, like a small little tent thing with poles that he could pop up. So when he would go to the parks, he would just pitch a tent and go to sleep. All he had was his guitar, his girlfriend, and the few other people that would hang out with him. He was kind of their leader. He was a cool guy. You know, when I got him a couple of pizzas one time, you know, he made sure that they were dispersed between the group. You know, nobody was getting more than their fill. You know, I bought them for him, but he, you know, there was a couple of people in that group that were a little off their rocker, I guess you could say. So we kind of just kept them in line, not aggressively, but you know, he was really nice. He would just talk to them, calm them down. He was basically their leader, and I think a lot of that came from the leadership skills he learned when he was in the military. He was able to translate that to homelessness in a way where he was not only able to take care of himself, but he had a girlfriend and like occasionally 3 or 4 other people who he would basically manage. You know, they would hang out with him, he'd get them fed, he'd get them cleaned up. He was a cool guy, but he's just like a regular guy, just in a bad situation that he made the most out of. Really, I mean, shit, I have my car in the gym, so you know, a lot of the things that they have to worry about, I never really did. So, and in a lot of ways, he had it a lot harder than I did. He just had the right tool set, the right skill set, the right tools, and the right mindset to take what he had and make the most of it. But I'm sure there's plenty of guys like that. I've met a few. Plus, you also get to know the other people living in their cars. Well, when I was doing that, you know, there's a lot of rules that you have to follow if you're living in a vehicle. Like I mentioned earlier, you know, sleeping in the passenger seat. You never want to sleep in the same parking lot twice. You know, people take notice, people call cops. You know, your vehicle will get impounded. You never want to eat in your car either, because just like any other space, if you eat and you leave crumbs, you'll attract critters. So you really don't want, you know, to end up with a bunch of crumbs or sugar and then get ants or worse in your car, because it will happen. What was another one? Tinted windows. You know, a lot of the people had tinted windows. Also, you want to keep a low profile. You know, you don't want to drive around with like a TV. Or I saw a couple of people that lived in a van that had like a whole barbecue setup, and anywhere, the few times that I would run into them, they would pitch a tent and put the barbecue out, bring out the 4 or 5 dogs they had, and basically like live like they were living in a house, you know. And some of the people I met would tell me, you know, you got to stay away from those people, not necessarily because they're bad, but because they're loud. They're drawing attention to themselves. So if you're trying to stay away from the police, you really don't want to hang around somebody who's basically drawing them in. And I did it during the summer, so it was hot. I was sleeping in bike shorts, and I throw a towel over my body, and I just go without a shirt. It would just be so hot. Thankfully, when I was up at the wetlands, you know, it's over near the mountains, so it's not too high of an elevation from the rest of Las Vegas, but the winds do pick up out there. So if you roll your window down and you park downwind, you get a nice breeze going, and you can kind of, you know, cool yourself off. There was one lady who lived in a RAV4, and she would just run her AC all night. She would just keep the battery going, and I always wondered, like, how much do you spend on maintenance? That's another thing people don't, you have to worry about when you're living in your vehicle. Maintenance. You have to maintain the upkeep of the car, because if you live in your car, you know, if you're lucky enough and you have a job, you got to make sure you can get to that job. If you get a flat tire and you don't have any means of fixing it, you're kind of SOL. So, you know, you kind of have to become a mechanic, or at the very least befriend a mechanic. You know, a lot of the vehicle maintenance that I learned was mostly from my father, but I would rarely use it. You know, I didn't rotate my tires, I didn't check the air pressure, rarely change my oil or my you know, just at the time, the work would say, oh, like your car smells. Let's try this one again. Oh, that was a bust. Yeah, I spent some time living in my vehicle this past year. Luckily, as I said before, I was able to have hold down a job. Eventually, just even though I decided I didn't want an apartment anymore, I kind of went back to it. I'm renting rooms out now, which is good. You know, I'm in a better location than I was when I was renting my own apartment. But I'm paying just as much. And not to sound ungrateful or anything like that, just you know, I left a situation only to kind of jump back into it. But that has more to do with the city ordinance, I think. I mean, outside of playing video games, and luckily where I'm staying now, the owner of the house has it set up so that every room has its own television and a Wi-Fi connection. So I have Tubi, there's Netflix. I don't have a Netflix account, but I just watch Tubi, a lot of good movies on there. So aside from being able to watch TV and play video games, I would probably still try to do the car life thing. But again, city ordinance, yeah, it's no longer a possibility. Police catch you, they're impounding your vehicle, and probably send you to lockup for a night. So unless you can be very inconspicuous or you know a lot of good hiding spots, it's a lot harder to do that now. But I still see it when I go to the Planet Fitness. I'll still see people that I knew when I was staying in my vehicle that I recognize. Like, oh, you know, there's Marcy. She's still out there. Haven't seen David in a while. The young lady I tried to take out on a on a Carl's Jr. date. I haven't seen her at all, but she had aspirations to become a comedian. She wanted to be a stand-up comedian. When we went to Carl's Jr. and we were eating, we were talking, she was running through her stand-up routine. You know, an audience of one. She was pretty funny. I don't recall a lot of her jokes. I don't know if she stole this one, but one of the jokes that she told me was pretty funny. What was it? I forget the setup, but it was basically something along the lines of when people are referring to adults, they also refer to midgets. And I don't know why, but they're also talking about midgets. That just had me rolling. Yeah, I'm just trying to fill up air now. Now that I'm talking and gaming, I just feel like I should continue to talk, but I don't really have much to talk about outside of maybe some crazy stories to tell. But maybe I should save those. I kind of came on this stream right now just to have fun on Christmas Eve, and I was talking about it earlier, just describe my 2025, which, if I can surmise it, was having a fallout with my younger brother due to his alcoholism and my fear of confrontation. Choosing to be homeless, living in my car, eventually losing my job, and then renting rooms out. Yeah, choosing to be homeless and then essentially choosing to become a renter again. But like I said, outside of playing video games and watching TV, I have the resources to go back to my car. It's not viable anymore. I see those YouTube shorts of people still doing it sometimes, and I think, you know, what city do you live in? For a while I thought about going up to Oregon. I actually got a job offer up there. But as I was looking for rooms to rent, every person I contacted never replied to me, and I eventually had to turn that contract down because I wasn't sure if Oregon was going to be car life friendly. You know, Vegas certainly isn't, but I hear there's a large homeless population up in Oregon, so I imagine to that end there's probably a large population of people living in their vehicles. I mean, that's just the reality of 2025. It's happening more and more. But I don't know the ins and outs. I don't know anybody. And even though I had the job basically like lined up, I was ready to go, I just have to actually get there. There's no guarantee that my vehicle would make it all the way. I think it would, but if anything happened on the way there, it's a 980-mile trip through a lot of northern Nevada, which is just cold and foresty. So it'd be rough to get assistance there, even with insurance, you know, trying to get somebody out there. I just didn't feel comfortable enough to go out there kind of blind and not sure if I would have the resources necessary to eventually be able to rent a room. Because there was plenty of ads up, but like I said, I contacted people and I got no replies. So either those rooms got snatched up and the listing just never got taken down, or they just didn't want to rent to me. think Steve is cooking something. I smell garlic. Yeah, I rent from an older Chinese woman and her cousin Steve. He lives on site here in the house. He's up there. He's a really nice guy. But I mean, whatever he's cooking is very pungent. It doesn't smell bad, but oh man, it's coming through the door. He's a really nice guy. Really nice guy. Been trying to learn a little bit of Mandarin just to kind of be able to communicate with him better, because he knows a little bit of English. But a lot of the time he just has his phone out onto Google Translate and he just like holds it in between us during a conversation and he just, you know, converse that way. But a couple of times I would leave out food for the other roommates and I would write it in English and Spanish and then in Mandarin from him using my Google Translate just to show like, oh, it's, you know, it's for everybody, it's to share. So I've been kind of picking up a few words here and there just from exposure. So that's cool, learning a third language, slowly, but learning. I always wanted to learn Mandarin. It's one of the most widely used languages in the world. I normally don't evaluate these things that often. I mostly just sell them to rack up the money, but kind of low on mods, so I'm gonna get some. Maybe mod up some of the guns. I've been literally chatting, like just running my gums this whole time, and just kind of understanding what I'm doing. So I should kind of see if I have anything good. I really like this revolver. I like the design of it. Yeah, I'll give her that one just to have. I'll do a little fun run. After this one, I might switch over to Dynasty Warriors. I love Dynasty Warriors. I've loved that since I was in middle school. I used to play those all the time. They're very repetitive, sure, but you know, if you just want something to like mindlessly play, kind of like this game. I mean, you really have to pay attention because the danger is imminent here. But like on something like Dynasty Warriors, you can kind of just mash buttons and get your way through it. I had an idea, because this isn't really tank controls, you know, but it's not like a Gears of War where you can jump to cover, right? But I had this idea of like a sci-fi game. Similar controls to this, to raid mode here in Resident Evil 2 Revelations, or Resident Evil Revelations 2. Kind of like this, but you're like a robot, right? Like a police droid, like Chappie, or those robots from Cyberpunk, right? You're one of those guys. And you go in through like different buildings and you just have to clear them out like you're SWAT. But because you're a robot, you can go in solo. And you can still do the skill upgrades, like maybe different mechanics, like you get a shield, like a force field, or like a wrist-mounted taser, or smoke bombs, or you know, percussion grenades, things like that, you know. And you can still use the guns, because in the movie Chappie or in like Elysium, those droids still use guns. They're combat droids, right? So you can kind of get away with this sort of like mechanical motion of a robot, so you don't have to jump to cover because you're a robot. You can take the hits, but you would be a robot. You just go through and clear out gang hideouts, kind of like what was that game? Chaos? I think it was Chaos, but it's this old game on PS2 by the guys who did Borderlands, I think. But but you're basically just like a SWAT guy, and you would go through and like help out paramedics during urban chaos, I think it was. But you're just basically a SWAT guy, and it's kind of like Judge Dredd. You just go through and you'd stop the riots in the city. It's pretty cool. So kind of like in a similar vein, you'd be a police robot, and like you can go through and clear out gang hideouts, you know, rescue hostages or survivors, victims, things like that. At least it's like a Unity game, you know. If I had the mind to learn how to program, I'm sure there's plenty of assets and with ChatGPT and stuff, ways to kind of get around the programming. And you could probably just drum something up like that for your cell phone. Just call it like a city patroller or something. Because I really like these game mechanics, if I'm being honest. I mean, I always loved the raid mode, like back in Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, after you beat the game. It's always fun, you know, just come home from work, maybe you don't want to get into like a game with a huge story mode, or, I mean, I love Skyrim, but you can get lost in Skyrim, and you can get lost doing absolutely nothing. So you can just burn 4 or 5 hours and not really accomplish anything. At least here it's like a point system. You know, you're leveling up. And I guess you are the same way in Skyrim, but it's a little more immediate here. And growing up, you know, going to arcades, I kind of gravitate more towards those kinds of games because I used to have to put a quarter in to play Metal Slug. You know, and for my quarter, I wanted to feel like I managed to do something with that quarter. So in that same vein, I feel like games like this, where the rewards are very immediate. You know, you can watch your points go up. It's a little more gratifying to me, but that's just a preference thing. Take a quick break and then maybe switch over to Dynasty Warriors.
Misión cumplida.
To Packers Dad, thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys have a Merry Christmas, and